And as our magnificent King Charles begins his state visit to Kenya today, protests over Britain's colonial past threaten to derail the entire four-day trip, with the Kenyan Human Rights Commission releasing a statement on Sunday urging the King to issue an unconditional and unequivocal public apology for the brutal and inhuman treatment inflicted on Kenyan citizens. Speaking at a state banquet tonight, King Charles did express sympathy but stopped short of saying that five-letter word. Take a listen.
We must also acknowledge the most painful times of our long and complex relationship. The wrongdoings of the past are a cause of the greatest sorrow and the deepest regret. There were abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans, and for that, there can be no excuse.
Now, back in 2013, the government paid £20 million in compensation to thousands of Kenyans and issued a statement of regret. But crucially, ministers never said sorry. So tonight I'm asking, should the King be apologising for Britain's colonial past? Let me know your thoughts. Mark at gbnews.com or tweet us at GBNews. And do vote in the poll on Twitter. The results coming shortly. But to debate this now, live in the studio, two good friends of mine. The former advisor to Margaret Thatcher and a brilliant broadcaster, diplomatic expert and writer for the Telegraph newspaper, Niall Gardner, and journalistic and broadcasting icon, Nina Mishkov. So, Niall Gardner, sorry seems to be the hardest word.
Well, thanks for having me on the show tonight, Mark. And
pleasure.
It's my view that Britain should not be apologising for the British Empire. Where does this all end, actually? And you have these endless calls for Britain to pay reparations, to say sorry for its imperial past. Usually these calls come from the left, often from the far left, and I think that Britain should be proud of its history as a great nation that transformed the world. Britain should not be apologising for its past. In this case, with regard to Kenya, the British acted against a terrorist movement in the form of the Mau Mau. They suppressed that uprising, which did target large numbers of civilians and involved large numbers of casualties as a result of the barbarism, frankly, the Mau Mau. So I don't think Britain should be apologising for a counter-terror operation, which was very effective, very successful, led by Winston Churchill when he was Prime Minister. And Britain should feel proud of its past and the role it has played in making the world a far better place.
Are there any circumstances in which Britain should apologise for its past? Should we apologise for Dresden or any other atrocities? No,
we should not be apologising for Dresden, for bombing Nazi Germany. Crucial, of course, to winning World War II. The British were not targeting civilians. They were seeking the destruction of Nazi Germany, a legitimate war aim. So we should not be apologising for our past. And the British people should feel proud, I think, of their imperial past, their role in defeating Nazi Germany, defeating tyranny, and, of course, spreading, frankly, civilization across the world. That's a record to be proud of.
Britain, Nina Mishkov, should not be apologising for its past. The world should be thanking Britain for what we've done.
There are many wonderful things that the British and the British Empire have achieved and have done, and nobody would take that away from them. But if we're talking about civilised, the way that British soldiers and the British people treated the Kenyans, 10,000 at least were killed. They were detained in more or less concentration camps. They were tortured. There was disease. There was malnutrition. They were beaten to death, and these were done by the British. Now that is you can't negate that. And the fact that this test case that was brought a decade ago, which caused an out of settlement court, which was the 20 million you talked about. That was, an implicit, admission on the part of the government that there had been wrongdoing. Now, the thing is, if you're a victim, the one thing you want, never mind the reparation, are those two words, I'm sorry, or we're sorry.
The victims
we're
are deceased.
Sorry. Yes, but their families continue. You can't. The thing is, you also have to ask yourself why. Why is Charles going to Kenya now? It's his first visit to the Commonwealth as king. It's the first non-European. He's only been to France so far. Kenya is obviously very important to the British government. Why? Because China and Russia both have their eye on Africa and have their ways and means of infiltrating in, offering them money, building railways, all of that sort of stuff. So obviously we want to keep Kenya on side. And if we want to keep Kenya on side, the smart diplomatic, political thing to do is to say those two words.
What a slur on our king, that you're saying he's in Kenya just for financial reasons.
No, he's in Kenya because the government has sent him.
Well, look, what do you think about Nina's point of atrocities, you know, the loss of life, people tortured? Why is it so hard to say one short word?
Well, what about the thousands of Kenyans who are the victims of Mau Mau atrocities, a terrorist organisation who targeted ordinary Kenyans who they saw as loyal, of course, to the British Crown? What about those victims there? I think we have to stand up to terrorism. We have to fight it and defeat it, which is exactly what Winston Churchill did.
I mean, the tragic people involved are no longer with us, OK? So it's hardly affecting future generations. And secondly, it opens the door to the madness of reparations.
No, well, reparations doesn't have to be...
It won't stop at an apology.
Reparation does not mean a lot of money. I mean, the thing...
Oh, so you're now writing cheques, Nina?
No.
It
doesn't need a lot of money. But listen, we have benefited financially from the empire. Let's not forget that. And
we benefited the empire financially. Infrastructure,
well, you have to ask
democracy,
the balance.
British values.
Well, democracy and British values should have been at play between 1952 and 1960 when those people were tortured.
If I could respond to that.
And beaten.
Niall, stop being so polite. Get stuck in.
I think that defeating terrorism is a good thing. And
I agree.
We defeated the Mau Mau, a barbaric terrorist movement who killed thousands.
I agree.
We should not be apologising for defeating
but then we shouldn't be using the same. We should not be using the same methods.
We're not using the same methods at all.
We were using the same methods.
Was it terrorism on the part of the British?
100% no, absolutely not.
May I remind you
ludicrous
that Nelson Mandela was regarded as a terrorist. Let me just put that to you.
What has that got to do with colonial...
That people who were regarded as terrorists turn out to then form the government. Jomo Kenyatta, why is it, Kenya, it's after Kenyatta. He became the leader of Kenya.
You haven't addressed my issue, which is if you apologise, which it doesn't achieve anything because the people are sadly gone, it opens the door to reparations because the apology will not be accepted. And once you say, I'm sorry, that's when they want you to get your cheque out. And we'll be writing cheques till kingdom come.
No, I don't agree that you will be writing cheques. But the thing is, you have to win the hearts and minds.
It's a legal minefield.
You have to win the hearts and minds of people.
It's a legal minefield as well.
I think
the Dutch king
apologising would be absolutely wrong.
South Africa.
Well, it's a small, irrelevant, flat country.
And Germany has apologised to Namibia.
If I could respond,
why can't we own our mistakes?
Britain is not Germany.
One at a time.
Completely different. I would say.
Finish your point. Fair enough.
I was going to say, why can't we own our mistakes? You don't seem to be able to accept the fact that we behaved in this barbarous, grotesque manner.
I'm proud of Britain. I'm proud of the British Empire. I'm proud of what we achieved as a great nation on the world stage. We should not be apologising or paying reparations.
We're not apologising for that.
Reparations are just extortion.
Admit that we behaved in a barbarous fashion.
I'm not going to admit that because it's not true. It's not true at all. It is not true at all.
Come on.
It's a complete delusional lie.
That you are deluded. How can it not be true? Why did the British government pay £20 million if it wasn't true?
Well, that was fundamentally wrong. We should not be doing that.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
We shouldn't
are
be
you denying history?
apologising.
Are you saying black is not white?
Look, I've got a PhD in history. I know a great deal of British history.
I'll make his point and I'll come back to you.
Get your facts straight.
So you are accusing your own country of terrorism, massive atrocities here. It's absolutely disgraceful.
I'm not accusing...
The vast majority of British people disagree with you.
I didn't say terrorism. I said they behaved in a barbaric fashion to the people. They did.
Why did we write a cheque? Why did we write a cheque for 20 million if no atrocities were committed?
Well, I think it was an act of weakness, frankly, from the Foreign Office.
Look, why are you so blinkered? Why will you not admit the facts? At least 10,000 Kenyans were killed. Thousands more were detained, tortured, beaten.
These crimes are terrible, but these requests for an apology are always political by the most recent Prime Minister or President that wants to win brownie points with the local population. This is politics and nothing to do with making up for crimes of the past.
Well, if they were smarter, as I said earlier, if they were smarter in playing the political game, they would get the hearts and minds of the Kenyan people on their side.
Niall, they are actually,
Niall,
in fact, most Kenyans support the royal family.
Niall, it's often populist leaders, isn't it, in Africa and beyond, who are just making a name for themselves when they call for apologies and reparations.
I think
it's pure politics and nothing more.
It is political, it's outrageous, it's extortionate.
OK.
And we have nothing to be apologising for, actually.
I think you are deluded, and I think you ought to go and look at the history books and get your facts
well,
straight.
I've read a lot of history. I hope you have. Obviously, you haven't. I think the British have a record to be proud of.
That's a slur.
We fought terrorism.
Absolute slur.
We fought terrorism. We won. And we defeated terrorism.
Yes,
we should be proud of that.
Will you not admit that we
behaved
in a grotesque and barbaric fashion?
We did not.
There's no point in discussing it with somebody who will not admit the facts.
Well, you seem to be living in a parallel universe.
There you go. Look, this show is all about diverse opinion. What's yours, Mark, at gbnews.com? What's your betting that these two will say sorry to each other in the green room in a minute? I do hope so. Drinks might be involved. Listen, as King Charles begins his state visit in Kenya, should he be apologising for Britain's colonial past? Thea says it's history. You don't erase or apologise, you learn from it so you don't make the same mistakes again. Prince, what an appropriate name, says no, the King acknowledged the past while looking to the future. The majority of Africans and Brits want to focus on unity and peace. They don't want to look backwards. Richard says, of course we should apologise. We've already admitted we were responsible for abuses in Kenya and paid compensation. An apology is also due. Well, your verdict is in. 8% say the King should apologise for Britain's past. 92% say he should not.